Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the upsets from this past weekend. BYU finally goes down on the year after avoiding a couple of run-ins, no doubt about that. And then Florida gets their moment in the sun. Anthony said it on the money. I was absolutely wrong as well. There's no doubt about that. I think a lot of people were wrong about Billy Napier this year, and he was able to get a lot out of this team. The last couple of weeks could not be more impressed, really, with what he's been able to do in the back half of the season, where would have been very easy for this team to quit. They were able to keep their wits about them, probably going to get to a bowl game, and we'll see what happens from there. But definitely a program that's heading in the right direction, and they might feel pretty good that they held on to Billy Napier this time next year. But obviously, still a ton of stuff to happen around there, including the recruiting world that is really heating up for Florida right about now. But let's get into this whip around, and we'll start with that number 2 team in the country. Ohio State gets a little bit of a slow start from them, but at the end of the day, they were able to get this win, not look back after that. Carnell Tate made a couple of huge, big-time touchdown catches. This one, you couldn't necessarily see on the broadcast all that well, but at the end of the day, he did make the catch, got 2 touchdowns in this game, was absolutely huge for this, and it was a Chicago native. So really, really cool moment for him, no doubt about that, playing in probably the stadium that he went to a number of times during his youth in Wrigley over there. But for Will Howard, win for nearly 250 in this game, 2 scores through the air. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson got over 70 yards rushing. Jeremiah Smith was Jeremiah Smith, had 100 yards receiving. Did get dinged up late in this game, so something to watch as we head into the next week, but should be fine. He's an absolute freak, so I'm just going to assume that he's fine going forward, if I'm being totally honest. But another clean game for Ohio State as they head into the huge one this weekend against Indiana. Another great confidence boost in. If they get this one this weekend, they will be in Indy and playing that team that beat them earlier in the season, looking for that number 1 spot in the country. And then you got Penn State. They were able to handle business in what has become kind of a pseudo bye week in the Big Ten. No disrespect to Purdue, but no one's really had to sweat too much when they've played Purdue throughout this year, but Penn State continues to handle business. Drew Aller had more passing touchdowns with 3 than he had incompletions in this game. Was really, really impressive, and it was all around the guy, and Tyler Warren. He was absolutely incredible, leading receiver because he always is, so of course he is, but leading rusher as well in this game. Had 190 total yards, 2 scores, 1 rushing and 1 receiving. He and Harold Fannin, it's battle for that Mackey Award. I do think it's going to be Tyler Warren because of the contest, or because of the competition, because of the versatility, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a really, really fun race, and those 2 tight ends are downright special. No 2 ways about that. But Penn State, you're 2 wins away from the CFP. You got to be very careful, because I think you lose one of these games and you are outright out. I think especially with the logjam that's happening in the SEC, if they lose one more game, they are not going to get into the CFP. Now, they have at Minnesota and then Maryland. They should be able to handle business. If they are able to handle business, I expect them to host a playoff game. And as we saw on Saturday with those Tennessee receivers, you get one of those SEC teams all the way up north, it could be a huge advantage for you. But at the end of the day, got to handle business. If they lose one more, I think they are officially out of the CFP. I have very few doubts about that, honestly. And then Notre Dame was able to get a very comfortable win. This was one that was 35-0, and then Virginia was able to get a couple of scores at the end to make this look a little bit better. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame has been very impressive the last couple of weeks. Jeremiah Love kind of been leading the way there. He's been absolutely incredible, and one of those guys that if you're watching Notre Dame and you're not watching number 4, do yourself a favor and watch number 4. He's absolutely incredible no matter what he's doing on that field. He's a really, really good player, and he's going to be back next year. He could be a Doak Walker Award type guy next year, but this defense is incredible. It's one of the best in the entire country, especially in pass defense. Forced 3 turnovers from Anthony Coulandry in this game, and they were just all over the place. I mean, I think it's one of those things that while I don't think this team is necessarily elite, I don't necessarily think this team is going to win a CFP game. If you were to host a CFP game and have that defense on the other side, you're going to have a really good shot. You're going to have a shot against just about anyone in the country. So it's a team that I don't think is perfect by any means. They were able to lose to NIU and still find their way into the race probably. But at the end of the day, I do think they're playing really good football, and that defense could get them a long way. And now it's the Army game. It's the game that a lot of people have been looking forward to throughout the year, including myself. Going to be really interesting to watch what happens in that one. Then you got to go to LA to play USC, which is a team that got a huge win this past weekend and could have a little bit of momentum by the time you go visit them. Obviously going to be a huge couple of games, and if they lose, they're absolutely out. There's no doubt about that. Got to keep their wits about them. Got to get these next 2 wins in probably the 2 toughest games they've played since that A&M game, honestly. And then Boise State, they got a 21-point win, but it was not a 21-point win, if you know what I mean. This was not necessarily as pretty as Boise State, as the scoreboard might indicate, but they scored a touchdown followed shortly by a pick six to really open this thing up. But Ashton Jeanty had another sleeper of a game. Only 159 yards and 3 scores for Ashton Jeanty in this one. Absolutely crazy. One of those things that it's insane what this kid is doing right now. And it's insane how many times this defense just decided we're going to stop him. We're going to try to stop number 2, and they still weren't able to do that. I do have a proposal for the Heisman that I'll reveal when I get to the Colorado game. I think it's worth looking at. This has been a very weird year, but I think Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter should be there alone. I'll get into that here in a second. But Boise State stays on track. They're still in the G5 hunt. I have a take about the G5 that I'll get to in a little bit here, but they have Wyoming and Oregon State to finish, and then the possible Mountain West Championship. If they win out the rest of the way, barring, an Army win this weekend, I think they're probably in. Now, maybe an Army win still gets them in because it clears out Notre Dame. Maybe they take Notre Dame's spot instead of a Tennessee or someone like that. I'd be a little bit surprised, but who knows? Still a lot of stuff ahead for Boise State, and still could get one of those byes with how the Big 12 is shaking out right about now. And then Boston College. This was another game that was a little bit closer than it looks like on that scoreboard because SMU scored with less than 10 seconds on the board to go up by 10 and make this one look a little bit better, but they get the win. They stay undefeated in the ACC. Grayson James did mostly a good job jumping into that starting role after a really weird week around Boston College overall, but nearly 250 total yards, 2 scores, did have an INT, but at the end of the day, on the road on your first start in elite college football, it's pretty good stuff, and probably should have been plenty for them to win this game, but Kevin Jennings had another great game, 300 yards passing, 3 scores on the day. They have at Virginia and then Cal to finish. They win this weekend. It would send them to the ACC Championship in their very first year. Would not be the best thing for a lot of other ACC teams out there, but at the end of the day, a huge performance from them and definitely puts them on the inside track as they head towards that ACC Championship. Could be a huge, huge game and definitely one that opens up a lot of things for this SMU program as they head forward. And then we got this one. I think Travis Hunter won the Heisman on Saturday. I don't necessarily think he should have, but he did. It feels like he did at the very least. His odds, I believe, are minus 330 on FanDuel right now, so they feel pretty good that this is going to be the guy. He had 5 catches, 55 yards, 1 INT, and a crazy rushing touchdown that I don't even know how he did it, but at the end of the day, he's remarkable, and he's probably going to be your Heisman at the end of the year. My proposal for the Heisman, I will get to it now. Just send Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty. I understand that there are a couple other guys. Cam Ward's played really good football, and he deserves some love. I'm not necessarily saying he doesn't. He'll get that at the Davey O'Brien Award. I think some other guys deserve some love, and they will get that at their own individual position award. Let those 2 guys go to New York. Those 2 guys have been far and away the best players in college football this year. Travis Hunter has done things that we have never seen. Ashton Jeanty has done things we haven't seen since Barry Sanders. Send those 2 guys, tell their 2 stories, let them be alone in New York. That sounds crazy, and I'm sure there will be more guys. I'm sure Dylan Gabriel will get the invite. I bet Cam Ward will get the invite. And I'm not necessarily saying that they're totally unworthy of getting those invites. I just think these 2 guys have set themselves so far apart from everyone else that I think we should just celebrate them. Just send those 2, let those 2 be the representatives in New York, and let that be it. They're going to be the 2 that are actually competing for the thing, so might as well just send those 2 and tell their stories. But it's going to be interesting to watch that unfold. I think Travis Hunter has won the Heisman pretty much as long as he handles business, doesn't have anything crazy happen with Ashton Jeanty. I think he's won the Heisman. But I think they should just send those 2 and call it a day. But we'll see what happens. I can't imagine that will happen, but would love to see it. And then I think for this game, they were able to handle a little bit of a scare to start this one. They had an INT on the very first play and had a little bit of a slow start, but they were dominant the rest of the way. They were able to get a step closer to that Big 12 title, a step closer to the CFP. The game wreckers are coming in. Kansas is on deck for the Buffs, and it's going to be a really tough game. They're on the road. It's going to be one of those things where they cannot afford a loss because the tiebreakers do not go their direction by any means. So pretty much if they lose this weekend, they will be objectively out. If they win this weekend, they only got Oklahoma State left between them and a Big 12 title, and whoever they meet there, whether it's BYU or Iowa State or Arizona State, they will definitely be the favorite team and definitely be a team that has a path to the CFP. As crazy as that sounds, I mean, if you told me that in August, I would have called you crazy. But at the end of the day, Deion has done an incredible job, and Colorado gets a comfortable win. Now you just got to handle the team that not a lot of teams in your conference have been able to handle in Kansas next week. And then we had a huge game. Let's get back to my Group of 5 take that I talked about with Boise State. This is the best team in Group of 5. Tulane is the best team in the Group of 5. They've lost 2 games to Oklahoma and Kansas State early in the year, 2 games that they fought a lot harder in than people realize, but I think you give them a shot even if Boise State goes 12-1. I think if this team wins out the rest of the way, they're 11-2 with wins over Navy, with wins over Army, with a win over Memphis, I think they deserve some love. I genuinely, I don't even care if Boise State goes 12-1. I think this is the best team in the Group of 5, and regardless of the record, should be getting some respect for the CFP. I think it's going to be hard at 11-2 if Boise State's 12-1, but I think they deserve some more love. I'll leave it at that for the time being. But Navy's leading rusher in this game, 31 yards. That is not normal for this Navy offense. They average less than 3 yards per carry, completed 3 passes for 13 yards, and threw a pick. This Tulane defense was absolutely incredible and is probably one of the better units in the entire Group of 5. Really, really good and did a great job against this run game. The American title has been set. The first conference championship that has been set around the country, Tulane versus Army, is going to be one. Home field is still yet to be decided based on the next couple of performances for those teams, but if Army wins and Boise State loses once more, they should be in that CFP in that G5 CFP spot. If Tulane wins and Boise State loses once more, they should be in that spot. Now, if Army wins this weekend and wins out the rest of the way, regardless of what Boise State does, they should be in. But it's going to be interesting to watch that one, and definitely a game that is absolutely huge for both these teams. Could send one of these teams to the CFP. And then finally, Iowa State stays in the fight for the Big 12. They win a dogfight in the first half and then dominant in the second half for Iowa State. Really, really good stuff from the Cyclones and gets back on track after 2 back-to-back losses. They're still in the hunt. I know that sounds crazy, but at Utah and then Kansas State left, they win both. They're in a really, really good spot. Now, they would need a little bit of help from, I believe, Arizona State this weekend. I think if Arizona State wins this weekend and then Iowa State runs out the rest of the way, it would be Iowa State, Colorado. I could be a little bit wrong there, a little bit off. I do think that's the outcome. And then if Colorado loses, the door opens even a little bit more. So despite back-to-back losses, they are still in the hunt for the Big 12, as crazy as that sounds. So a huge win for Iowa State, and definitely one that they very badly need to just get the season back on track one way or the other. But overall, a crazy weekend. There's no two ways about that. We had a couple of upsets. We had a couple of teams avoid some upsets. We had a couple of teams get some huge wins, including Georgia. That huge win over Tennessee was definitely the headline of the weekend. But that'll do it for this edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It does make a huge difference. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the social pages for all the content and updates you could possibly need. We have great people doing great work across every single sport you could want. So anything in the world of sports that you need, come on over to GSMC and we have you totally covered. But thank you once again for listening, and I will see you guys tomorrow to break down some of the crazy CFP scenarios in front of us.